Now this is a good guitar, but could it be a great guitar? So what am I starting with then? So this is a vintage V120. It's got a solid mahogany body, solid mahogany neck. It's got a rosewood fingerboard, and it's got everything about it is good. You know, there's nothing really to complain about, nothing really to write home about, but the bones of the thing are good. What I'd like to do with this is turn what's already quite good into something that's great. I had the pleasure of playing an Eastman SB55 a few years ago, which was, without exaggeration, fantastic. It was exactly what a Les Paul Junior was meant to be. It was resonant, it was vibrant, it had articulation, it could scream on demand. It could do really what you'd expect a Les Paul Junior to be able to do. So we'll have a look over the next few videos whether this can be turned into something as good as that. So we're going to start off by doing some basics. Let's get some housekeeping, get the frets in order, get the thing playing nicely, and let's see what that does in terms of improving it. I picked it up secondhand for a little over £100, and it works, but let's see how good we can get it without spending any money. And then we're going to replace the hardware. So the bridge on here, we'll talk about this a bit more. It's okay. The tuners, they're okay. I'd like to improve them. And then we're going to look at the electronics. So we've got a single P90, so it's about as simple as a electric guitar can get, and it's got a couple of potentiometers for tone and volume. So we're going to see how good we can get those as well. And by the end of all that, let's just see then, is this good guitar great? So the first thing to acknowledge is, actually I couldn't be patient enough. I didn't think about making a video about this journey when I got the guitar out of the box. It had several high frets and it didn't really play very nicely. So the first thing I did was take the strings off and sort the frets out. So in this first part of the video, I'm going to show you what I did by using a different guitar. So it's a Washburn from quite a few years ago. It's had a hard life. It needs a few frets sorting out and just a little bit of TLC. So I'm going to walk you through what I did to this guitar by using another guitar. And then we'll plug this one in and see how it sounds. The first job we've got to do before we do anything to any of the frets is check that the neck is straight. So to do that, you need one of these notched straight edges, and it'll have a couple of different scale lengths on it. So you've got a short scale on one side for a Gibson guitar and a long scale for a Fender style guitar. So this guitar that I've got here is a Washburn. It's got a Fender scale length, and what we can see is that the neck is almost straight, but there's just a little bit of a rock in it. So we need to use the Allen keys to straighten it out a bit before we start. And you notice I've also got some polystyrene wedging the middle of it to stop it from bowing under gravity. So without pressing down at all, we should get the fretboard nice and straight, and it's not quite, so we'll just tweak it and then hopefully we've got a good starting point. So a couple of very small tweaks with our friend Alan, and we've got a nice straight fretboard to start with. So it's on to the second step. So the next thing we're going to have to do is check to see if any of these frets are taller than any of the others. And to do that, we've got this little device here which got a few straight edges on it. And as we work up the fingerboard, we want to be looking at 3 frets at a time. And if it rocks at all, it means that one of the frets is higher than the rest or lower than the rest. As the frets get closer together, we need to switch to another of the straight edges. So we'll work up from the bottom of the guitar, and yeah, sure enough, the very first one we're looking at has got a bit of a rock, so that second fret probably is a little bit high. Not too bad on this side, just it's very small, so it might be good enough, but we'll have a look at that. And then we'll work our way up from there, see if we've got any other little rockers. Oh, there's one there. So it looks like the 5th fret is also a bit high, 2nd and 5th. So now we're going to switch to a slightly shorter edge and carry on going. Thought it might be a bit boring for you to watch all of this, but 14th fret, we've got a little rock again. So 14th, 5th and 2nd so far. So now we've got to have a think about, well, what we're going to do about these frets that are a little high. Of course, it could have come from the factory with one fret that was just a bit higher than the rest, and it's never been addressed. But probably the most likely reason it's high is because it has possibly popped out of the groove that's in here. So the first thing to try is to use a plastic-ended hammer just to see if we can tap it gently back into place. And that might be all that we need to do. But if that fails, then what we might need to do is to take a fret leveler beam like this and work that across the frets so that we get it flush with the rest of them. But let's hope the hammer does the trick in the first case. So my little polystyrene block was probably a little bit too soft, so I've put a little block of mahogany directly under this this fret now, just a bit of padding to stop it from doing any damage to the neck, and we're going to just try and tap it and see if that does the trick. Might have to use both hands, so I'll put the phone down. So a couple of good taps of the hammer, and let's have a look. Let's get our little straight edge back again, and oh, look at that. That is solid. No more rocking there. That's all we needed to do. Let's hope the others are so easy. Well, sure enough, let's pop this on the 5th fret again, and after a couple of taps, that is no longer rocking at all. So a nice simple fix, and it will make the world of difference to how this guitar plays. So the next job, before we think about restringing the guitar, if we have a look at these frets now, they're a little bit worn perhaps, but not really that badly worn. So what I'm going to try and do is just polish them up a bit with a bit of wire wool. I think, yeah, that any marks are very superficial. There's no appreciable divots in them, so I don't think we need to do anything else other than just to polish these up and clean up the fretboard as well, and then I think we'll have a very nicely playing guitar. So as I've been cleaning these up and getting rid of some of that grime on the surface, some of the divots are perhaps a bit more noticeable than they were before. And it certainly has been played, this guitar, which is good. I think the worst thing you can do is find a guitar that's never been played, because it means no one liked it, which is a real shame. So someone loved this, and that's great. So there's a few divots in here, and it's, for me, it's a judgment as to whether that's bad enough that it's worth doing something about. We could take the leveling file to this, work the frets down a little bit, then recrown them and polish them up again. But you have to take a call as to when it's worth doing that, and for me that doesn't feel bad enough to warrant that. Others may disagree, of course, and that's entirely fair, but I'm going to just leave that because I can't really feel those under my fingers, even though they are visible. So that's one of the frets that hasn't been polished yet, so hopefully you can see the difference between the shiny one and the not so shiny one, and we'll carry on going, and then we're going to condition the fretboard. So I've worked my way all up the fretboard. You can see why it's called the dusty end of the guitar. This end, the frets had hardly been touched at all, and they were just caked in grime, whereas some of the others had been worn down a bit more. So next job then is to keep this fretboard in nice condition. I've got some of Monty's guitars, Monty Presso, which is like a shoe polish basically, but you work that into the rosewood, and it makes it look stunning for one thing, and it keeps it hydrated, and there is a risk that these rosewood fretboards can crack. I've had one that has cracked over time just because it's been allowed to get too dry. So this stuff, or lemon oil, or there's various other products, can just help keep it nicely conditioned, and it just looks stunning as well. So that's the next job. So what I tend to do is grab an old cloth, slap plenty on, try and work it into the grain of the wood. Already you can see just how lovely and dark that makes it, but that's not going to be the finished product by any means. We're going to rub this in, leave it there, just see the difference between those two. It makes such a difference. We'll put it there, leave it for a good few hours, let it really soak in, and then we'll try and buff off the any excess, just so that we're not covering our hands and the strings with wax, which is obviously not ideal. So yeah, I'll work through the guitar doing this, and then show you what it looks like. So what's the setup? Well, to be brutally honest, it's really crude. What I'm doing at the moment is just recording through my phone, and I'll work on my setup as time goes on, and hopefully you'll hear the improvement. But for now, what I've got is the guitar plugged via a little wireless device into my Boss Katana head on the crunch setting, and that's coming into my Marshall 4x10, and you're just hearing the audio from the iPhone, I'm afraid, and we'll work on that as time goes on, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what we're starting with. So let's just see what this volume pot does. So my first observation there is, as you opening up that volume pot, it's a very dark sound, very muddy sounding, quite muffled, which is no bad thing. You'd expect that to happen at the lower end, but that, I think, limits just how usable the tone is. So after about 3 or 4, it starts to not make much more difference as you turn it up. Seems all the magic is really happening over the first couple of marks on the pot there, so a bit limited on what you can do there. So let's have a go with the tone. Let's turn the volume up to 10. So that's quite a similar story. You start off with the pot on 10 and it doesn't really do very much, but by about 4 then it suddenly seems to drop off. So it's, again, perhaps not particularly useful as it is, but yeah, it does the job. Let's have a go with some different picking dynamics, see how that responds. Pretty good job, to be honest. I think this P90 sounds pretty nice. Whether it's the most sparkly, the most dynamic, like, I guess probably not, but it certainly gave me more when I wanted it, and it cleaned up really nicely without having to control the volume at all. So I think that's pretty good, actually. But I am, of course, going to replace it. But no, I think we're starting off with a guitar that plays nicely, no frets choking out anywhere, and the pickup seems pretty good. The electronics seem pretty basic. The tuners seem to be holding their tune, but yeah, it's a working guitar. It plays nicely, and it costs just over £100. I think that's not a bad starting point. So some final thoughts from today. Well, I think it just shows you can get a good guitar for really not a lot of money. If you're willing to put a little bit of effort in, get a few tools, you can get a guitar from eBay that is a bit rough, to be honest, to start with, playing really nicely, and it sounds okay. I've not had to spend any money on it yet. So I think we've got a great starting point, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So hopefully you'll join me for that one, but look forward to seeing you there.